Hey, welcome to History or Whatevea with James Manning III.
Well, hey, Sarah, what's going on?
Hey, I'm just excited to be here, James Manning III.
Hey, yeah. Oh, well, you pointed it out. I'm James Manning III, and welcome to History and Whatevea. And today we have a little bit of local history. So, hey, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, I'm Sarah Schofield. People around this parts know me as Sarah Whopner. Generally, I'm the lead singer of Whopner County, previously the Whopner County Country Allstars. And we've been playing around town for 21 years, and I think we're here to talk a little bit about John Henry's and the glory that was John Henry's and now continues as John Henry's 3 in downtown Eugene.
Yeah, well, John Henry's is one of those places that I believe when I became familiar with it, it was like its second iteration. And I don't know, one day we got to talking to about it at a show, and that was just like, wow, well, you have a wealth of knowledge on the subject. So, but let's talk about your band a little bit.
Yeah.
So how did you guys get together? When you say you started in
2001. So
2001.
we still exist, and we've been playing for 21 years. We joke that if you were born the year we played our first show at John Henry's, you can come to our shows at John Henry's now.
Hey, all right.
So we got started, as a matter of fact, as a trio. A good friend of mine who I just met randomly working downtown in 2001 had a little band, country classic band with his dad and his best friend, and his dad was teaching him classic country. And he randomly mentioned it to me. I'd been a singer since I was a kid and decided, hey, yeah, you guys got a country band? Sure. I knew very little about country, but decided I'd love to sing, and he invited me over, and we used to have practices in downtown on every Thursday night in a garage, just the three of us, and learned how to play, and eventually named ourselves the Whopner County Country All-Stars, and started playing around. First time we ever played in Eugene was in 2001 at John Henry's. And then many, many years went by, and there was a 1 year that we played at John Henry's every month for an entire year.
Whoa.
At the Broadway John Henry's. And then in 2011, my brother, who played bass for us, passed away, and we came back together, myself, our drummer, and our guitar / lap steel player, and started doing other music besides just the classic country stuff, and changed our name to just Whopner County from the Whopner County Country All-Stars. But yeah, Greg Volstead and myself have been playing in that band. He was in that garage Thursday night, and that's been 21 years of us. Our drummer now, Ken Howe has played with us for like 17 years. And so that's it. We kind of started out as a real classic country tribute band, did a bunch of stuff there for years, and then now we do all sorts of different things, soul and blues, and kind of expanded. I always joke that, there's only so much classic country you can do before you got to find a song that's not in C, G, and D.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one. I don't know that I haven't done any like country music history stuff yet, but I plan to, and that's one of course, my passions as well. I'm not sure who will be listening to my podcast, but I'm not sure if they're listening because they like my comedy or if they've seen me somewhere, but country music is always something that I've been really fond of, and what I've found is that, yeah, you will branch out a little bit. I went to blues, but because that's where it kind of originally comes from.
And, we do rock and roll, blues, country. It's all the same, really, when you break it down. And so, what we've expanded to, if you can call it expanding, is just that same music and its own history and changing over time and all of the new stuff that's come out through that process. So we've been the benefactors of everyone from Hank Williams to Elvis Presley to Aretha Franklin, dot forever.
Well, and that's one of the things that I was saying when you got here was that, history is very small and it can be very large. And you're definitely a part of the music scene here in Eugene. I mean, I've seen you several times. Your band's great.
Baby likes a shot of whiskey in the morning, but now he's gotta settle for my loving. When he gets the shakes, oh my poor heart aches. Well, he ain't got a drink, but got each other. There was a time when I was adored, but that was with the whiskey pour. He sure can get awful mean in his fight and staying clean. Whiskey won't release its hold, and that's what hurts me so. Well, I thought that he would overcome, but now I just don't know. Every time I think he's got a chance at a fair fight, that bottle rears its ugly head, 'cause that old grip's too tight. He may be a strong man and he packs a mighty blow, but set him on that bar stool, and whiskey wins again.
The music scene here in Eugene. I mean, I've seen you several times. So yeah, and you're very knowledgeable about the things that have been going on here. And so tell me what it was like when you first went into John Henry's to do that first show.
So this is really a great story, and this is something that we've continued all through our whole 21 years, which is we are kind of even when we were a very strict genre band, when we did just classic country, we absolutely loved to mix genre. So playing with the bands that aren't classic country bands was pretty much our favorite thing to do. So we've played with metal bands, punk bands, just any kind of genre music. We're actually going to be playing with an electro funk pop duo coming up here in December. So, just try to mix it up with as weird as stuff as we can. So the first time we ever played at John Henry's, I had been working at Hunky Dory, head shop in downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a guy who used to come in and buy cigarettes, and he was the drummer for a band called the Necro Sluts. And if you can imagine, the Necro Sluts were exactly what they sound like. They were a metal band that really kind of focused on weird, sexy, creepy shit. And
So
he
the
said,
very appropriately named Necro Sluts.
Yes,
Okay.
the Necro Sluts. And I'd never heard them, but I thought, yeah, I'm totally into that. Let's do that. So, and that's actually hilarious because I, at the time, knew absolutely nothing about the Eugene music scene. I'd been going to John Henry's, going to 80s night, doing the fun, just being a drunk and being a 20-year-old. And so I knew the people who worked there and I knew John Henry's, but I didn't really know anything about music or how booking or all that stuff worked. And so this guy from the Necro Sluts said, yeah, the Whopner County Country Allstars, you guys should totally open our show. And I was like, cool.
I'm going to take that soundbite out and use it. The Necro Sluts said, well, that's great.
So
highly endorsed by the Necro Sluts.
Yes,
I'm working on that endorsement myself. It hasn't come through, but
yes, we were. And so what ended up happening is while we were in fact highly regarded and respected by the Necro Sluts, I chose to make a poster. And now I did the old classic cut out like a ransom note out of a magazines, made this whole just not digital. It's 2001. I didn't have a computer. I didn't know anything about graphic design. So I made this poster out of magazine cutouts on a piece of paper, took it and copied it at Kinko's and went down to John Henry's. And I was like, yeah. And I put on the poster that it was us with special guests, the Necro Sluts, when in reality now, in hindsight knowing, it was actually the Necro Sluts with special guests, the Whopner County Country All-Stars. We were opening the show. We were nobody. It was their show. But in my opinion, I was like, I'm making the poster. I'm just going to make it say us.
yeah, and it doesn't sound like the Necro Sluts were putting out a poster of their
No,
own.
they were not. They were
All
not.
right.
So I went into John Henry's and I started hanging up posters. And again, no idea what's going on. And here comes Keith Martin. At the time, he was the booking agent. And he comes up to me and he says, who are you? And what are you doing? And I said, hey, I'm opening up for the Necro Sluts. I decided just to make a poster and bring it in. And he goes, I've never even heard of you. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the booking agent for this bar. And if you're booking shows, you need to go through me. And I was just like, talk to Darren from the Necrosluts, because I have no idea. This was news to me that we weren't already like dialed in with John Henry's and they knew what was going on. So it was a lesson learned very immediately in the music industry that just because you're the opening band in your classic country tribute and very excited about having your very first show, you don't really get to just roll into the bar and start putting posters up. So check one. We now know that.
Yeah, you learn as you go.
That's right.
In entertainment, that's how it is.
Yeah. So the good news is that Keith was a lovely fellow, and he said, well, clearly you've already decided you're going to do this. I'm not going to be a jerk. I'm not going to kick you out of here. So no problem. You guys can open the show.
Hello, everybody. Boy, that thing works. Holy shit. Don't want any of y'all to get afraid. There will be some necro-slutting going on. You have not come to the wrong place.
So that was the very first time we played classic country, very, very traditional country, and then the Necrosluts that played. My favorite thing about them was they had a female lead singer, and she had 2 mics that had different effects on them, one of which she used to sing weird into, and the other which she used to just wail into. So you can imagine it was a very strange combo. But we learned pretty early in our career also that people who like all sorts of genres of music love classic country. We opened up for punk bands there. We opened up for a band called Big Bubba, where the guy's big thing, the lead singer, used to drink beer and just vomit all over the stage while he was doing a set. And then
part of the show?
It was part of his gig. Yeah, just pound a PBR, puke it all up, keep singing. That was the old John Henry's. That was the original John Henry's, where you could get away with puking beer on the stage.
So,
in your set.
If you wanted to really make a name for yourself, you could just spew foam.
Yep.
That's how John Henry's was back in the day.
Totally.
It's like, well, there's just so much that went into that. The Necrosluts didn't tell the booking agent. I can't believe that.
I know. It's shocking. Really, it's shocking. It's shocking both that I had no idea what I was doing and just barreled in. That's not like me at all. I've never been like that.
Hey, you only got so many choices, It's like, look, I made this flyer, and I don't know where else to put it. So
exactly. So
well, and if you hadn't done that, then it might have been even more of a surprise when you showed up for the gig.
It's true. And actually, over the 21 years, that has happened. We've shown up for gigs and people said, oh, you guys are playing. We also had one time a booking agent, I think it was Lucky's, who put us on the poster and didn't invite us. So people were like, oh, you guys are playing. And we were like, no, we have no idea what you're talking about. So, the scene
it's like,
in town,
just put the old flyer up, whatever, dude.
Yeah,
They'll come,
It's pretty willy-nilly, at least for in back in the day. They're getting things a little more dialed in these days, but, it was pretty much just a free-for-all. Whoever was willing to show up and rock out, that was good.
Yeah, well, these days, you got to actually make like a digital flyer, and it's got to go on the internet somewhere. Because, otherwise it's just not going to happen. So you got to be at least that put together.
Yeah, definitely. I think I might be wrong here, but I don't even think I had a MySpace page when we played our first show. That was just word of mouth and ransom note flyers in town that you had to find. Yeah,
just like, it seems like I remember like an old Ramones album cover or something that looked clipped together with, Yeah,
it said on the bottom of it, if you ain't here, you ain't local, which was our first slogan of Whopner County. If you ain't here, you ain't local.
Well, I mean, that's pretty good slogan. I mean, you nabbed it up before the Necrosluts could. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So, and then how long was John Henry's at that was like at the West 11th?
Yeah, originally
right?
It was on West 11th, and what is now actually the building completely got torn down, and they built a St. Vincent de Paul low-income housing in that space, so that exists still today. But the original John Henry's opened in 1992, so I'm not quite old enough to have experienced that. I was a middle schooler in 1992, But I know that they were open. This was a big deal punk bar. A lot of people I know hung out there. A lot of people I know bartended there even still when I started hanging out there. But in 2002, that location closed down because St. Vincent de Paul bought the building space, or basically bought the block, and the city of Eugene said, yep, you guys got to go. And so I believe it was like in May or so, but they tore that building down, and literally people who were John Henry's enthusiasts came and literally tore that building. People took my bandmate, Greg Volstead, who plays guitar for us still, has a piece of the wall of John Henry's that was behind the stage with signatures and band stickers and all sorts. If you go into the John Henry's 3, there's still some old stuff that came from that. But yeah, people were like, it was history. It was a big deal that they were closing that John Henry's. And what ultimately ended up happening is the guys who owned it then sold it to, surprise, Keith Martin, that old booking agent guy. Right. And so they opened that on Broadway just in 2003. So it was kind of was like a summer and a half-ish, I guess, that there was no John Henry's in town. And so a lot of other music venues kind of tried to pop up. We played at the Wetlands, actually became a huge music venue that happened as kind of the interim John Henry. So there's tons of shows that went down there. A booking agent who both worked at John Henry's and then did booking and graphic design named Evan Marshall kind of started the stuff with the Wetlands as, you know, kind of bridging that gap. And John Henry's reopened in 2003, and the Wetlands kept doing music for a while. And then eventually John Henry's just kind of got their ball rolling again. And we saw a lot more stuff going on there. So that was open until 2003. So we played quite a few times as the Whopner County Country Allstars there. And then before it closed all the way, we played a few times there as Whopner County, as just the trio that we are now.
Oh, at Wetlands?
No, at the Broadway John Henry's.
Oh, at the Broadway John
we
Henry's.
played at the Wetlands too. We didn't mess around. We loved the Wetlands. We played there all the time.
You know, I've never been. The only show that I've been to at the Wetlands, it was a comedy show, and it was like a one-off thing in the back room. And ever since then, I've never heard anything about it.
Yeah, they don't do music there really anymore that I know of at all. But during this time, it was the place to be. They used to do this big Fat Tuesday Mardi Gras party, you know, the big, huge New Year's stuff, you know, all of that stuff. And again, bands all the way from punk bands, metal bands, other country bands, rock bands. I mean, I could go on and on about the local bands that played there and touring bands. And but really, for a lot of folks in town, I think it was kind of we're just waiting for the downtown scene to pick back up. So we're going to go out west for a little while. But of course, you know, it's easier when everything's downtown. There was always the trick of like, oh, we got to get way out West 11th. And then, you know, so I think that people wanted to see the downtown scene come back. And I think John Henry's reopening there gave a lot of that, you know, that created kind of the original piece of that Bermuda Triangle as John Henry started to become popular there. And then, you know, the Horsehead had opened recently before that, and kind of all those spaces. But John Henry's really did bring music back to downtown at that time, at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, so just while we're on the sidebars, before we move on, did you ever play at the Black Forest?
Oh, heck yeah. We played at the Black Forest.
I knew it.
My favorite Black Forest show. We played, so Black Forest being, it's kind of a sports bar as well as the Wetlands. So when you play music in a bar that has a lot of TVs, that's always a fun thing. I've played plenty of shows in front of televisions where people are just watching a basketball game behind us or whatever. But at the Black Forest, the TVs were behind the bar, which were actually in front of the stage. And I remember I had my brother played bass for us. I had Greg Volstead, guitar player, next to me up front. And we got a few songs in. I realized they're doing like some Sports Illustrated swimsuit model thing on this TV behind the bar. And I finally had to say, Hey, head bartendress, could you turn that TV off? Because I cannot get these guys to concentrate on playing music with boobs in the background.
Oh, wow. You were having issues with your bandmates, not just
Yeah.
people not paying attention.
Yeah, it's
You're
impossible.
Just off the chords and stuff.
Yeah, we were very distracted by boobs, and we had to ask the bartender, can you turn that off? So, yeah, the Black Forest was always a fun place to play.
Classic
for sure.
Black Forest. Well, that was one of those, like, I wasn't old enough to go into the original John Henry's, but I used to go into the Black Forest a lot, which, of course, is not there anymore. But I do remember John Henry's, and... So when did that start happening? It moved from 11th to Broadway.
That was in about 2003, and I don't know the
2003.
exact dates. It was about 2003 that started, and that was really... they were open there for a decade. So that was really the bulk of John Henry's to anybody who's, under 60, right? Like the old John Henry's existed. I'm 44, so I was kind of hit that at the end. And I know people that are still around, certainly, that used to hang out there. But for the most part, people in my age group and younger, they remember the John Henry's on Broadway. And that is where... the burlesque scene, the burlesque show that was like the original burlesque show, that Classy as Fuck burlesque started there at that John Henry's.
Well, we actually have quite a bit of burlesque performers here in Eugene, and it kind of started there, huh?
Yeah, some of those folks that used to do the burlesque down there at John Henry's still are doing it in other places. And yes, there's a lot more of that going on. But far as I remember... that John Henry's Classy as Fuck burlesque, that was the first time we really had focus on that there. And some of the other things, the 80s night continued. The DJs for that were amazing, and they DJ'd it 80s night on West 11th, and we used to go every Thursday night. And then John Henry's kept that on Broadway. And actually, I was saying earlier, the 80s night still exists. It just doesn't happen at John Henry's anymore. So that's been a very long standing tradition. And then other things, there was a reggae versus hip hop DJ night that they used to have there, and, just tons of things. One of the things we participated in a lot that was really fun is they do tribute nights. And so we had annual Johnny Cash tributes, Elvis tribute. We played a Dolly Parton tribute there one year that was really fun. So we got to be the house band for a lot of the country stuff that came through that was just kind of like, oh, hey, you need a band that knows 35 Johnny Cash songs? Yeah, that's us. We're ready.
Jeez, that's a lot of Johnny Cash songs.
Yeah.
That's certainly more. That beats my 2 or 3. I'll tell you that.
We had to learn a lot. One of the things that was kind of the staple of that Johnny Cash show, which was just really fun and cool, was that we used to have other musicians, artists, singers, people, bartenders from John Henry's that would come up and sing. So we just learn every year. We just learn a few more songs because so-and-so decided they want to do this weird, obscure thing. And we go, all right, let's learn that one.
Almost like live karaoke kind of deal.
It was. Yep.
That's
and
cool.
we, there's tons of people that are still around town. Kenny Wilson, who is over at the Big Dirty now. He did songs with us. Manny Placencia, who's with the Real Gone Trio, did songs with us. Jake Kuzi, the Kuzis don't play around too much anymore, but back in the day, Jake Kuzi was the lead singer of the Kuzis. And Brooklyn J, he's at American Traditional Barbershop now, but he was John Henry's bartender at Broadway for many years, and he got up and sang. There was a lot of fun stuff. Elvis tribute, we did the same way, so bartenders and other people in town would get up and sing with us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always plenty of room for people. Like I've witnessed bands who are not into letting other people come up there and sit in with them or whatever, and I just never get that. It takes away from the like flavor of what's happening, Well,
and we were the Whopner County Country Allstars. So there were 5 of us. That changed. We had a different bass player at the beginning. He went to banjo for a while. We had, over the years that we were that kind of iteration, we had 2 or 3 other lead guitar players. but we always considered the Allstars whoever played with us. So one year, Ken Babbs, who's one of the old Merry Pranksters guys, did a trombone solo on stage with us at Sam Bond's. So he was an Allstar. We had anybody that was interested in being a part of it. And that's the Whopner County thing's always been about kind of inclusivity and bringing the community together. There is no Whopner County. So the joke originally was Hazard County in the Dukes of Hazzard is a fictitious county. So there are Hazard counties that are real in our country, but as the show, that was not a real place. So when we started as Whopner County, we always used to say we were the bordering county to Hazard County. And so when you're at a Whopner County show, and still this is how it is, if you're at a Whopner County show, then you're a resident of Whopner County, and that's wherever we are. So whatever building, whatever space, whatever truck we're playing on the back of, well, you get to be a resident of Whopner County for as long as we're there.
Well, cool. I've been there. Next time I'll register to vote in that county, I think.
Yes, you should. So the Allstars was anybody who was able to get up that were fun and wanted to play with us. We loved it. We loved to invite other people and to just try out other sounds in what we were doing. So
it sounds like when John Henry's is at Broadway there, you guys played a lot there.
Yeah, we did. I wish that I knew the year, but it had to have been somewhere around 2005, 2006 that Whopner played every single month at John Henry's. So we played every month. We were not the house band of John Henry's, but we were lucky enough to be a part of that community. And so we just played. Sure, yeah, we played with the Koozies, we played with Hill Stomp, we played with, the Sawyer Family, a bunch of different bands that came through from out of town, a lot of local bands. And and still, our favorite thing to do is open a show. So we just like to open a show. Anybody that's going to play that says, yeah, we could have the Whopner County open up, we say, yeah, let's do that. We want to be a part of that.
Well, as a comic, sometimes people get bent out of shape if they're asked to open. It's like somebody's saying, well, you're the worst on the roster. What do you think? And that's really not it at all. Like, I do some show producing, and when I produce comedy and I think about how do I want to open the show, it's very important. I don't select somebody, or I don't think about somebody who's not going to bring the energy and light that place up. And, if somebody's excited about opening, that's even better. I mean, I like to open, I like to host a lot, so that doesn't bother me. I feel that right there.
Yeah, we still ask if we can open, and there's a few reasons for it. Just what you said, I love to be the energy that starts a show. I love to be able to pump up the crowd and pump up the other bands and, talk people up and get people ready for the show. I really love being able to kind of get our show out of the way, because I always am playing with bands that I want to see and I want to hang out and listen to. And so get the nerves out of the way, get the preparation part of your night out of the way. We still, now we're old. And so opening the show is like, well, if we want our friends to come out, we better play at 9, because if we play at 11, we're going to be a much smaller crowd.
I've definitely heard that a lot. Just like, oh, what time? Well, it starts at 9:30, and they're like, I'm not sure about that. So I guess, though, that when they changed venues, though, they stopped booking the dude who vomited beer everywhere? Or was that kind of still the thing where they're like, yeah, let's bring in the hardcore bands and let's make sure that...
Yeah, I'll be honest. Big Bubba was the name of that band. If anyone knows who they are, I would give them a gold star, because they were around for a while. I can't say if Big Bubba ever played at the Broadway John Henry's, but they definitely were not shying away from weird and crazy things. One of the shows that they played, I don't think High Priestess says this anymore, but back very far in the day, in the early 2000s, High Priestess Piercing did a show every year called the Body Modification Celebration, where they had bands. I worked there, so I got in on the initial there back in, I guess it was probably 2003-ish. But so I got in on that original thing, and we played Whopner played that show with Cap Gun Suicide, which was a local punk band at the time, and quite a few other bands over the years. We played the very first one, and then we played the second one, again, annual. And they did that for a while, but one of my very, very favorite stories of the body modification. So...
Oh, here we go.
If you can imagine.
I love when it starts off my favorite stories about body modification.
Yes,
this
yes.
is okay. Bring it on.
So this isn't something like you don't see this around town, but back in the day, and I don't want to call it High Priestess, they're a great company and they are still doing a lot of cool work. But way back in the day when they were just a piercing shop and we were all kids and, just doing whatever.
It's probably low priestess at this time. It hadn't made high yet.
Maybe a little bit. But so that was kind of the initial thing with suspensions and this kind of piercing as a part of performance. And so when the body modification scene was kind of blowing up in that around High Priestess and all that stuff, they decided they wanted to do that in a more public place. And so John Henry's decided to say, yeah, we're going to have this celebration here. Like I said, a bunch of bands signed on, including the Whopner County Country Allstars. And they did music, and then they did suspensions, and they did like needle play where they literally would like stab these big long needles like through people's faces, through their bodies. They did a lot of like corseting with needles, and then literally suspensions where the John Henry stage had ropes hanging from the rafters there, and they literally strung people up and and it was a... Miss Sarah Scofield's pants are falling off. God damn it.
That's
Somebody
okay.
find me a belt.
This one show, it don't matter if your pants fall off or not. You let them fall off, they'll tattoo your ass. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Don't get impatient with the music selection. We've got some great bands coming up. The Hellenbacks. Been to Hellenback. We got the Hellenbacks. We got the Cap Gun Suicide Cap Gun. And we got some band called the Briefs, which do not play in briefs. They have briefs tattooed on their bodies. And so they're naked. That ought to be good. We also got a hanging coming up. Or a suspension. What we call in Whopner County a hanging. Yeah. And here we're going to call it a suspension.
I think these folks are going to hang you, son.
I think they're going to hang me.
No.
I feel safe here tonight. I'm okay.
I'm okay. I'm up here in Whopner County.
Bizarre and bloody, gory mess of like weirdos and like this really intense, spiritually powerful, like having that kind of stuff done, watching that stuff is just insane. I mean, it just puts you in like the craziest, weirdest, trancey feeling. And so I remember I was kind of numb to it at that point. Like I'd been working at High Priestess for a while. I'd been to other parties. I worked in the office. I was an administrator, and sometimes we'd come into the office and there'd literally be people just like hanging and then we were like, yeah, could we find another place to do this?
It's just like, hey, I'm on my 10-minute break. You want to leave me alone or what? I'm just hanging around for 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Just give me a break here. I'm trying to get through my work day.
Yeah. So it was an interesting thing, but the thing that happened at John Henry's that was my favorite was, of course, you've got a bunch of people that are a bunch of weirdos like we were that were super into it and just came and were like, yeah, this is so cool, and watched everything and got into it. And then you had the people who came that were like, didn't really know what was going to happen. They knew there was a show. They knew it was like High Priestess, which was really a really reputable piercing shop in town and still is, but like people knew who they were. They were like, cool, they're doing this celebration of body mod. Like, let's see what it is. And so
they might have been partially prepared for what was about to happen.
Sort of, right?
They
like,
probably knew somebody was going to get pierced at the very least.
Yeah, but like you go to the shop and people are getting pierced. Like they're getting their ears pierced. They're getting their nose pierced. Like I'm talking about people throwing foot-long needles through people's faces. Like this was This was
Like
on its head,
cheek to cheek,
exponentially.
kinda.
Yes, crazy stuff, right? Like we had a kid that suspended from his kneecaps. Like it was gnarly. So I remember the door guy telling me that he had a girl that went in, and when she came out, she literally was like, I think that I need to start going to church. Like she came to Jesus at the body modification celebration.
Oh, well, I mean, I wish somebody would have told her that that's probably not going to help with the trauma, but,
No,
you know.
I don't know who she was. I hope that she worked it out over the last 20 years. But my favorite, and I hate to tell this story because I don't have names and I can't say.
It just helps me not have
exactly.
to bleep it out.
But this really happened, and it was kind of the glory of this event for the weirdos like myself who were putting it on, that we freaked people out so bad that a guy who came from a local paper, I won't name names, came to report on the incident. He was so terrified that he actually shit his pants.
Wow, well, safe to say he's not a combat journalist.
No. So literally like that was what came out of that, was just like this amazing story of this journalist who was ready for this body modification thing, freaked out so bad, shit his pants in the bathroom at John Henry's and had to leave. And then it was
He
just
shit his pants in the bathroom? Like he was
Like-
just like so scared that he almost made it.
almost made it. Yeah, almost. It was that terrifying. So, it's one of those things that it's just, I don't even know who would remember this. There's people still alive who probably do.
Well, maybe
But,
somebody will hear it and
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that totally happened."
yeah, it was a moment in time that you just don't forget. And that was Whopner County Country Allstars, part of that glory.
That certainly is spicy.
Yes.
Well, and that's kind of something that it's not normal to see that happen, but it isn't something that's unheard of.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're not ready to see someone suspended by their kneecap skin, that'll probably, I know I'd probably find my way to the door pretty quick.
Yeah.
But that's just my sensibilities. I mean, I've seen it online and stuff where people are hooked up and they're like gliding around and stuff, and that was enough to make me go, okay, I'm over that.
Yeah,
But good
yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
They like it.
Totally. If you've seen the movie The Cell, Vincent D'Onofrio does a great scene where he's suspended himself from his back. It's horrifying, and that's basically it. So if you want to envision body modification at John Henry's in the early 2000s, go watch The Cell, and you'll see what that looked like.
There's an example if you need one
Yeah,
available.
The other thing too, and this was less traumatizing, but also something that came out of John Henry's that was huge. In mid 2000s, when we founded the Emerald City Roller Girls, the very first pudding wrestling.
For the likes of me, I've got a gallon of gals. Keep your bucket of pals. I like my gallon of gals. Hey! Gallon of gals. Keep your bucket of pals. I like my gallon of gals.
Which wrestling for the roller derby is still happening. They had one at the Blair Alley just this year, but we started that there. You cannot see it now. The people who have taken over that space at John Henry's and opened a new bar have done their diligence to clean up. But for many, many years, there was remnants of the most disgusting pudding splashed on the ceiling of that stage. That was our first big event, was at John Henry's doing pudding wrestling, and it was disgusting and a mess, and continued to be a tradition for a long time. We were grateful that John Henry's was like, sure, you want to get a bunch of girls in here to be weirdos and wrestle around in pudding on our stage, okay.
Yeah,
But-
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. And
right.
I do have to specify, this is important. As the Roller Girls, we did not make this a sexy event. This was not about cute girls in bikinis doing this. We did it very much in the roller derby style. So everyone had their own kind of moniker. They had their own character. We all dressed up in crazy things. Local comedian Jen J was also involved in that, and she was the lunch lady, and she dressed up like a lunch lady, hairnet and all, and she had this whisk that was like, I don't even know where she got it. It was like the most giant whisk. It was an industrial size whisk that she would stir the pudding with, you know, maniacally laughing that she was ready to take on her opponent. So yeah, you know, we had wild times at that John Henry's on stage making a mess.
Wow. Well, that certainly makes me disappointed that I missed that. And it sounds like he had a good draw for the pudding wrestler.
We did. You know, we had a lot of people that were into that, and like I said, it's continued as a tradition with the Emerald City Derby now, and the Lane County Concussion, which is another derby league here in town that put those on still.
Wow. All right. So John Henry's is really it's very rooted in the community. Like, people around here have been doing things around the John Henry's for a long time.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of the interesting thing when I saw that it reopened. I was like, well, what? I had no idea, you know, and they managed to get a lot of the things from the old John Henry's, some of the banners and signage and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I figured it out. John Henry's closed downtown in 2013. And they just opened this John Henry's 3 in 2022. So that was a long period of time.
Right.
The people who opened that were old school John Henry's enthusiasts and people that worked there. And then some other local business people who joined in. But Tom, who was one of the original owners, was encouraging to the guys who opened the new John Henry's to say, hey, you know, you might as well carry this tradition on. And he got them the rights to the logo and the whole thing, and they've got their sign up that says "Music You Can Smell," which was in John Henry's forever.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to John Henry's, where you can smell the music.
They've got, like I said, some of the stuff that was art on the walls. They pulled out posters from a bunch of old John Henry's from years and years ago up there. And so I think they really are. They're trying to kind of keep that tradition alive in a way. And you know, like I said, 1992 is when that first opened up in West 11th. So that's a hell of a history.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one of those things that you just won't know about. Like, oh, I thought John Henry's used to be over there. It's like, yeah, it did, but now it's back, and it's bringing live music back to the downtown area, you know. And there's really not a lot of music venues in downtown right now.
There's not, and honestly, obviously the pandemic hit a lot of stuff, but there was other venues that were open. I mean, we talked about Black Forest as an option. The Oak Street Speakeasy was open down there for a long time. We played over there a lot.
Were some of these kind of like transitional where you would play after they shut down over there and became what they are now?
No, they were places that were open when John Henry's was still open, you know. And so the Diablos, the Downtown Lounge, was doing music back then. The Samurai Duck was also downtown. They were metal.
I remember Samurai Duck.
Yeah. So there used to be a ton of different places. I'm probably even forgetting some. The Wit now is still, you know, holding it down pretty good. They're definitely building back. Sam Bond's Garage, obviously, being kind of the original venue down there, and then Old Nick's coming up, and that actually the building where Old Nick's was a music venue 1,000 years ago. My brother actually was in bands in the early 90s that used to play there.
Oh, really?
And so, you know, that was a scene that dropped for a long time, and then Old Nick's, picked that up and brought that. And then, of course, the other spots down there, Blair Alley, and, you know, now Yeah, just tons of space. But one of the cool things is in downtown that's fairly new, just a couple years, is the Big Dirty. So that's going to be a pretty, it's been so far a music venue that's really focused on music. You know, they are a bar, they serve bar drinks, but they are definitely looking at trying to create that as a music venue downtown. And so, you know, we're still holding on in downtown Eugene, sort of, but that is definitely something that used to be a big scene. There was a lot of live music going on down there.
Yeah, it's just it's sort of like if you go looking for live music on any given Friday, Saturday night, sometimes it's a little more difficult than you'd think. But it's cool to see that there are places that are coming up. Like Big Dirty's beautiful. Like the work that they did in there on that stage it looks phenomenal.
It is.
I've been to a couple of shows there. Really cool place. I mean, I love the Horsehead, but they do not do music. And that's you won't find it there, you know. But we've got a lot of these venues, and I'm looking forward to seeing more shows at John Henry's. I'd like to go and check that out. Have you guys played there yet?
Yeah, we did. We played in September with a few other bands. Again, with the mix of genre. We played with a punk band from Portland and a metal band here in Eugene, and another kind of pop punk band, rock and roll band from Eugene. And honestly, the thing that they are holding on to at John Henry's that has been definitely through the years 100% is it's fucking loud as shit in there. It's just loud as shit. And it doesn't matter. Apparently the size of the building doesn't matter. The street it's on doesn't matter. As soon as I was in that space and that band started, I went, oh yeah, we're at John Henry's now. So if you like loud music, hit up
I've
John
heard,
Henry's.
you know, the louder the music, the more people drink.
Hey,
Yeah.
probably. I don't know. You know, I'm not a drinker, and I, you know, am grateful that people get drunk enough to enjoy everything that happens in bars.
You don't have to be drunk, you know. Well, it's just you always want to make sure that if you pay and buy a ticket, like I want to be able to hear it. I don't care what this dude over here is trying to say. So I'm all for that. And then, well, do you have some shows coming up?
Yeah, actually, speaking of the Big Dirty, we're pretty excited about getting in there. So it'll be the first time we've been able to play there. That show's going to be on December 3rd. And we're playing with a band called Truffle Pig and a local band that's headlining called The Service Call, which are a great group of guys, great band that's played around town for a long time and just doing some good old-fashioned rock and roll. I think they're billing it as jam night, which suggests maybe that we're jam bands, but we are not. I don't think any of the three bands are jam bands, but we're definitely the kind of bands you can get into and dance and have a good time. At this point, we're all doing from, you know, rock and roll. We do some originals, we do some covers, but we're doing everything. Literally, we're doing a song that was made popular in 1967, and I do a Kesha song from her most recent album. So we're going to be doing crazy stuff at the Big Dirty on the 3rd, and then Blare Alley Vintage Arcade. Also, we've played there a few times, and we're going to be back there on the 15th. And I am remiss that I don't know the name of this band, but they're an electro funk pop band. So I don't know what that means, but I'm super stoked about finding out. I joked with the booking agent there. He thought, well, maybe this isn't the right kind of music for you guys. Maybe we shouldn't put this show together. And I told him the story about the Necro Sluts and said, you know, hey, this is fine. We can do this. But
yeah,
I
look,
just,
we opened for the Necro Sluts. I don't think this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, we just don't care. We're totally into playing with whatever weird stuff we can get involved in.
Yeah, something for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
There's something for everybody. These upcoming shows. All right, so let me see. You got the 3rd at the Big Dirty.
Yep.
And then the
15th.
The 15th
at Blare Alley.
At Blare Alley. All right. Well, right on. I mean, did we cover? Do you have any other interesting stories about these other venues? I mean, anybody else who shit their pants, or I mean, before we get going here,
I got no pants shitting. However, I would feel bad to leave this out. One of the other events that was an annual event that happened a few times, we played it in 2007, was the Mustache Rally. And it was a group of folks. They know who they are.
Mustache Rally.
They're still around. But it was an event, specifically a tribute to mustaches and those who have the most epic of mustaches. And for those of you who are local Eugenians, you know Ty Connor. Ty Connor hosted that event. And speaking of researching history, Ty Connor had pages and pages of information about every famous mustache and every person, every kind of mustache there was. And we had so much fun that year. We all wore mustaches. I was the one person then that had to provide my own. I got this blonde mustache. I joke. I don't even know if I have a picture of it, but I just remember I looked like the Lorax. It was like way too big of a blonde mustache for my face, so it took like the whole upper lip and most of my cheeks. And I had to sing with that horrible mustache on and glued on with spirit gum, which tastes like poison. And I will never forget, it was the most fun night, and it was so silly and ridiculous. And I've never played in a fake mustache ever again. But I won't forget the Mustache Rally and all the folks who used to put that event on. It was great fun.
The Mustache Rally.
That was the most dramatic song I've ever done wearing a fake mustache. It takes the cake.
I thought we had a mustache MC here for tonight.
Yeah, no shit.
Thunder.
There's some drunk guy back there that's supposed to be talking to you about mustaches, but he's too drunk.
You look pretty fresh-faced when I saw him outside.
He's not even drunk yet. He can't even do his job. I don't know. Honey. It's called Shut Your Mustache, dedicated to J. Wayne Crump.
That just sounds like a good time.
It was. Maybe maybe the guys from John Henry's 3 will hear this and they'll decide, hey, we need to have another
mustache rally. We'll have to find a better adhesive for your mustache if that's the case.
I think I've learned my lesson. I think I will not be mustaching up for any events.
All right. Well, we'll see if we get the mustache rally going on. I'll talk you into it. It's only because I can only imagine what that would be like. Like, my mustache comes with the beard, but if I had adhered one to my face and tried to sing, this has got to be, that's a conundrum. That is a problem.
It was a problem.
Did you end up making the whole show with it on, or did you peel it? Because I wouldn't have been 5 minutes from peeling it.
I got through our set, but I didn't get through the night.
Okay. Well, that's really what matters. If you got through the show, you're good. Well, all right. I think we've come to the end of our little discussion here. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on History and Whatevea. Talk about local music history and local venue history. And I think that's important that we give these stories a little bit, not just because I want to hear about a reporter who shit himself, but mostly because everybody wants to hear about this.
Yes.
Okay, and it's like these are microcosms, but as a community whole, like, we know about John Henry's.
Yep.
Yeah. And
everybody's got stories. I mean, I could go on forever about stories of John Henry's. There's been everything from the most love fests to events that were so crazy they had to lock the doors and shuffle people out the back door because it was popping off and things were getting broken and whatever. I mean, if you've spent any time at any one of these John Henrys, you've probably got a story of some wild night that you had there. And I have lots of them. And I am, grateful to be in this scene and still be able to participate as an entertainer and have people still want to come out and see us and see the other bands. And surprisingly, there's not a lot of bands that have been playing in Eugene for 21 years. I say surprisingly sarcastically because bands just don't last that long generally.
No, generally they don't.
We've been lucky. We've got a family of people who just want to play music together till we die. So I think you'll probably be finding Whopner County on a poster somewhere. Hopefully they booked us first before they put us on the poster and you can check us out. Who knows? But yeah, I think that the music scene in town has gone through all sorts of craziness, and through all that, John Henry's definitely stands out as one of the originals, one of the best.
Well, and Whopner County. I mean, y'all have been there through the process. I mean, not since the very beginning of the first John Henry's, but hey, since all of its iterations.
That's right. And our very beginning was at the first John
And
Henry's.
your very beginning. And it's good to remember where you come from.
That's right.
You know?
We come from Whopner County, James.
Yeah, that's
Whopner
it.
County.
Registered to vote in Whopner County. All right. Well, Sarah Schofield, Whopner County. Go check it out. Go check out these live shows. Go support local music and music venues.
Yes.
So that we can keep doing this for everybody.
That's right. Thanks for having me so much. I really appreciate it,
Hey,
James.
thank you for bringing these stories and being a part of local history for us all. So, hey, that's it. That's History and Whatever for this week. I'm James Manning III. And, hey, send me an email, jm3e.pod@gmail.com. All right, we'll see you later.